Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this session for the AAA revision marathon. We had a session yesterday, and in that session I did one of the question from the latest mock examination that has been published on the ACCA website. The question actually pertained to the risk, the question pertained to the audit procedures. There were different things that were actually examined in that question. The agenda of the session of today is going to be that I shall inshallah be taking you through that mock examination. There are two more questions of the mock which are left to be done. So I will be taking you people through that those two questions of the mock. And in case if any one of you have got any queries, any questions, anything to actually ask, you're most welcome to ask, because the ultimate objective of the session is that you should actually be able to get the answers to your queries. Mr. Rahman, the recordings for the session have already been uploaded on the Scriber Academy's YouTube channel. So you can go to Scriber Academy YouTube channel and you could actually find the recordings over there. So let's start off. We are going to start off with this specific paper of the AAA. So the AAA pre-December 2022 mock examination that was available. We actually went through question number 1, section A yesterday. Now today what we are going to do is that we are going to move to section B of this specific question paper. So with respect to section B, there is basically, as you know, that there are 2 exam questions that are available, and each question is worth 25 marks each. Each question is worth 25 marks each. Now let's have a discussion. Let's go about this. So basically, you've got this question where the background information, the Hyacinth company, Geranium company, Daisy company, there are points that are actually given with respect to each one of them. Now you've been given requirements, you've been given the word processor document. If you talk about the requirements of the question, it says, in respect of each of the matters described above, comment on the quality of the planning and performance of the group audit, discussing the quality management and other professional issues raised, and recommend any further actions, including relevant audit procedure, to be taken by your firm prior to finalizing the group auditor's report. The split of the marks allocation is this: Hyacinth company 7 marks, Geranium 6 marks, Daisy company 7 marks. And then you would have the 5 marks for the analysis and evaluation skill, professional judgment, professional skepticism, and judgment, and the commercial acumen. So let's actually start discussing about this. Let's see what exactly is this all about. So you have to comment on the quality of the planning and performance of the group audit, discussing the quality management and the other professional issues. And the second thing that you have to do is that you have to recommend any actions that need to be taken, and so on and so forth. Now, what am I actually going to do is that, let me just guide you with respect to this specific thing. First of all, when the examiner says comment on the quality, so always remember the word quality, which actually would mean what? The quality means, in simple terms, the compliance of either. If you are going to be complying with either, I repeat, quality in simple terms actually mean that you are going to be complying with the ISA. So that means basically if you are complying with the ISA, that's actually a quality. Plus, furthermore, what happens is that when we talk about this quality further, so it's like at the same time, quality could be evident at the planning stage, quality could be evident at the performance stage, and even at the review stage also. But here the examiner has asked you quality of the planning and performance of the group audit. So we are actually going to talk about this. Now, let's start discussing. Let's just see that what exactly is mentioned over here. So basically it says, you are responsible for performing engagement quality reviews on the selected audit clients of Crocus & Co. And you're currently performing a review of the audit of Magnolia Group, the group. The audit for the year ended 31st March 2005 is nearing completion, and the auditor's report is due to be issued in 3 weeks' time. So the audit is nearing completion and the auditor's report is due to be issued in 3 weeks' time. Now, the following exhibits available on the left-hand side of the screen provide information relevant to the question. So these are the information which is relevant to the question. It says background information about the group's activities, structure, and the draft consolidated financial statements. High-end company points you have identified during your review regarding controls and so on. So geranium, daisy, etc. Now the requirement is that you have to talk about all the things. You have to talk about the relevant, if you have to talk about the additional audit procedures that could be performed. You have to talk about the further actions that need to be taken, etc., etc., etc. Now, if I talk about high-end company, it says the group companies supply each other with various chemical products to be used in the manufacture of chemicals. Audit work performed at interim stage, including walkthrough procedures and internal control evaluation, concluded that controls over intra-group transactions were not effective, and this was documented in the audit file. Now you see what actually happens is that one thing is that the controls were determined to be ineffective, especially with respect to the intra-group transactions. So basically what should have happened is that I don't know if the procedures are performed or not, but with respect to these further actions, so I would actually plan procedures for testing of internal control failure areas. So there are areas where there are failures, so you have to actually talk about it. It says the test of controls confirmed intra-group transactions are not being separately identified. At the final audit, test of controls are performed to confirm this to be the case. At the final audit, the test of controls were performed to confirm this to be the case. The test of controls confirmed that intra-group transactions are not being separately identified in the group's accounting system, and reconciliation of amounts owed between the subsidiaries are not performed. So what actually happens is that these are the areas where you actually would have to perform the procedures also. So intra-group transactions, elimination of intra-group balances, intra-group transactions, elimination of intra-group balances. In fact, I'm really sorry, I just missed out one specific area, but I'm just going to come on to that. Are not being separately identified in the group accounting system. Now, what actually happens is that deficiency in the controls should have been reported to management and those charged with governance at the interim audit stage. It says the group audit manager has concluded on the audit working paper that the intra-group balances are cancelled on consolidation. This issue has no impact on the group audit and no further work is necessary. Okay, so the knowledge and understanding of the group audit manager is weak. He seems to be incompetent, as he is unable to determine a high risk area for the audit. Then what else is there? It says the test of control so and so, so and so. Now, as part of the audit approach, it was determined that extensive testing would be performed on controls relating to capital expenditure, as it was identified during planning that the company had made significant acquisitions of plant and equipment during there. Following the test of controls, the controls over capital expenditure were evaluated to be effective in high-end company. Now, basically what happens is that if the asset acquisition transactions had taken place, then this should have been subject to substantive procedures and not just restricted to the test of controls. Okay, now what next is there? The next situation is basically, it says the working papers conclude that based on result of test of controls at Hayek and company, it is reasonable to assume controls are effective across the group. You cannot assume on the basis of one single company. And substantive procedure and property, plant, equipment in each group company have been planned and performed in response to this assessment. So basically what happens is that the conclusion that yes, Ibrahim, you can, and you can even, I can share with you the playlist. So you could actually share the playlist to him and he could benefit from that. So like even probably you can also go through the playlist on the Scriber Academy's website and you could actually try to see that playlist and you could share to your friend. Okay, Hassan, thank you for identifying. I'm just going to check with my team because it should have been there on the YouTube already, but let me just recheck with my team so that they can actually upload it. And thank you for identifying this. Yeah, you're most welcome, Ibrahim. Okay, now what next is that the conclusion that controls are effective across the group on the basis of one single subsidiary is not an appropriate conclusion. Now, you see what happens is that right now I'm just identifying the pointers. I'm just identifying the pointers. So now when I'm just identifying the pointers, what I'm actually going to do is that I will draft one or two pointers to you people and will let you know that how exactly should you be answering these. I'll let you know that how exactly should you be answering these, but I'm just giving you this thing that what are the things that you need to consider. Okay, now what happens is that on the basis of all this, it says recommend any further actions, so and so to be taken by your firm prior to analyzing the group audit reports. I have actually mentioned that you would talk about, what? You would talk about the intra-group transactions. I have mentioned that you would talk about the elimination of intra-group balances. I have also talked about that we should be Yeah, I've also talked about that we should actually have been performing the substantive procedures on the property plant equipment. Okay, is there anything that you would like to add with respect to Hyken company? Yeah, anyone would like to add anything with respect to Hyken company? Okay. So basically, this is something that we are going to be talking about. Now, I actually missed out this background information. So I'm just going to go through this background information and to see that in case if we can actually identify furthermore things. It says the group manufactures chemicals which are used in a range of industries with one of the subsidiaries, Daisy Company, specializing in chemical engineering and developing products to be sold by other group companies. The group products sell in over 50 countries. The group structure is shown below. Each of the subsidiaries is wholly owned by Magnolia, the parent of the group. Crocus Company is engaged to provide the audit of the group financial statements and also the audit of Hyken and Magnolia Company. So basically, Magnolia and Hyken and the group. Germanium is a new subsidiary audited by a local firm of auditor based near the company's head office. Daisy Company is audited by an unconnected audit firm, which specializes in the audit of companies involved with chemical engineering. The draft financial statement recognizes profit before tax of this, and total assets of this. Now let's just come on to Geranium Company. With respect to the Geranium Company, it says the subsidiary was acquired on 31st December and is audited by Fund Company. The global audit strategy contains following statement in relation to audit of Geranium. Geranium will only be consolidated for the 3 months and the post-acquisition profit for that to be included is 150. On that basis, Geranium is immaterial to the group financial statement. Now, first thing is that which financial year are we talking about? We are actually talking about what? It's actually written over here in the question. No? We are talking about the financial year ended 31st March 2005. Okay. So it says that the subsidiaries results are going to be consolidated for 3 months, and the post-acquisition profit for that period is so and so, so and so. On that basis, geranium is immaterial to the group financials. And therefore, audit procedures are based on analytical procedures only. Okay. Other than analytical procedure performed, there is no documentation in respect of geranium company or its audit firm fund and company included in the group audit working papers. The draft statement of financial position of geranium recognizes total assets of this. Now, let me just try to explain to you something. So basically, if I could just give you this idea, your company had a total assets of 130 million. The group had total assets of 130 million. So what actually happens is that 30 million divided by 130 million is 23%. What is it? It's 23%. So geranium companies assets are 23% of the total assets of the company and of the group, sorry, not the company, of the group. And therefore, geranium company is significant component for the purposes of the group. It is not immaterial, but instead it's a significant component and should have been audited. So no procedures for the communication with the component auditors. No procedures for communication with the component auditors were performed. And if we talk a bit further about the geranium company, what happens is that since it was acquired during the year, the procedures should have been planned for acquisition accounting, goodwill calculations. These are the things that should have actually happened. I repeat, these are the things that should have actually happened. These things should have actually happened. Now let's move a bit forward and let's discuss further. Now, then there is this Daisy company. Daisy company is the company which is actually producing everything. As well as being involved in chemical engineering and supplying chemical for use by other group companies, Daisy specializes in producing chemicals which are used in the agricultural sector, and around half of its sales are made internationally. So you see what happens is that if there is an international sale for Daisy, if there is an international sales for Daisy, so basically foreign exchange transactions are involved. Procedures should have been planned for it. Now what next is there? It says Daisy Company is audited by Foxglove and Company, and the group audit working papers contain the necessary evaluations to conclude that an appropriate level of understanding has been obtained in respect of the audit firm. Foxglove has provided your firm with a summary of your key audit findings, which includes the following statement. During the year, new government environmental regulations have imposed restrictions on international trade in chemicals, with sales to many countries now being prohibited. So if the sales are being prohibited, that means that's an indication of impairment. Our audit work concludes that this does not create a significant going concern risk to Daisy, and we have confirmed that all inventories are measured at the lower of cost or NRV. Okay, it's not just about the NRV. With respect to the inventory, it's about the chemical plant also, because ultimately what happens is that the plant is not going to be operational at the full capacity anymore. So if the plant is not going to be operational at the full capacity anymore, that means you're going to be losing out. Now it says the group audit manager has concluded, I'm happy to that no further work is needed in this area. Why are you happy? We can rely on our modified audit opinion to be issued by Foxglove and Company. Issue was not identified until it was raised by Foxglove and Company. It has not been mentioned to me by group board members, and it has no implications for the consolidated financial statement. So you see, the competency and the judgment of the group audit manager is too much to be questioned. The draft financials of Daisy recognize total asset of 8 million, and the profit and loss recognize profit before tax of 50,000. Draft consolidated statements recognize goodwill in respect of Daisy of 3 million. Last year was also 3 million. You see, what happens is that the Daisy is not a significant component on the basis of its quantitative thresholds, but qualitatively, Daisy is a significant component because it is this company that is supplying to all other companies, and its existence is the key. Furthermore, it has got a significant number of related party transactions. So my question is that the examiner says you have to perform on the quality control and the other professional issues that are arising in this specific scenario, and you have to recommend any further actions, including any relevant procedures to be taken by your firm prior to finalizing the group auditor's report. So I'm actually, you see, what have I been doing? I have been listing down the pointers as and when I'm actually going through the question. And then now I can actually conclude all of these things. So I could just tell you things. I could say, I would suggest you people that don't actually segregate the quality and the professional issues under different headings, because it becomes very difficult for you to answer the question there. So always what is recommended is that do not segregate, but rather what you should do is that you should actually mention it very clearly that the following quality control and the ethical issues actually arise. So you have to mention it like this. Okay, now let's just try to see these things. Basically, it's commenting on the quality of the planning and performance of the audit of this one. So you would say that while reviewing the working papers of the audit of, what is the name of this company? The Magnolia Group. Well, of the Magnolia Group, following quality control and the professional issues have arisen. The audit has not been conducted with the appropriate level of professional skepticism that is needed to handle such a So while reviewing the working papers of the audit of Magnolia Group, the following quality control and the professional issues have arrived. The audit has not been conducted with the appropriate level of professional skepticism that is needed to handle such a large group audit. This is compounded by lack of planning by the management of the firm by assigning audit to a manager whose competence is in doubt, considering the interpretations and the comments that the manager has made. There were deficiencies in the internal control. There were deficiencies in the internal controls related to the intra-group transactions, which had been identified So basically, what is actually happening is that you see there were deficiencies which have been identified, such as which had been identified, and they had not been reported to the management and those charged with governance at the time of the interim audit. Instead, auditor reperformed the procedure to confirm such ineffectiveness of the controls. Yes, Meila Machoka, I will. Thank you very much for this. I will, inshallah. I'm really sorry that I have not been able to share, but I'll just ask my team to actually send it across to everyone. Now, What else is there? So we have actually been able to do this thing that this was not controlled. So deficiency in the control should have been reported. Then furthermore, what happens is that the inability of the manager to understand high risk areas, taking the audit too casually. The partner seems to be not involved at the performance or planning stage. The delegation of authority within the firm does not seem to be appropriate. If the significant asset acquisition has taken place, then this should have been not just restricted to test of controls. Conclusions that controls are effective so and so 30% geranium is a significant component, it is not material, so and so and should have been audited. No procedure for communication with the component auditors of geranium company. No procedures performed for the high risk areas of acquisition accounting and goodwill calculations. Audit firm failed to identify that since 50% of the sales of Daisy is international sales, then such foreign exchange transactions require multiple exchange rate to be used, and such transactions can be subject to incorrect accounting. This area should have been identified as the key risk area. So you see what happens is that you would have to talk about these things. You would have to talk in line with these things. You would have to talk in line with these things. This is something that you would have to do. So basically the first part of the question which says that you have to comment on the quality of the planning and perform and the other professional issues. So I've actually identified them. I've actually identified these few things. I have identified few things. I'm just highlighting them so that maybe you could just know that this is a pointer that I've actually identified. Yeah, if there is anyone who would like to add up any pointers to it, you're most welcome to do so. If there's anyone who would like to add up any pointers to it, you're most welcome to do so. Yes, yes, the substantive procedure should have been performed. Test of control is of no use. Yes, it is greater than 15%. If the total assets or if the total sales or if the total profit is more than 15%, that is actually going to make it significant component. Okay. Now I'm giving you 5 minutes. You try to answer this specific point that because you have actually discussed the part A with me, people, with me. So now you could probably answer this part B. So just try to, I'm giving you 5 minutes, just try to write down whatever you can think with respect to this. Yes, Titilope, I think you are correct. Basically, I just checked with my team. It has not been made available till now. I think they have uploaded it, but it's actually scheduled. It's not something that has been published till now. So okay, now let's move a bit forward. And basically, if I could just ask about the different type of things that actually have to be done. So let's talk, let's discuss about it. Basically, what happens is that um, let me guide you about it. Basically, what is going to happen is that the further actions, the further things that needs to be done is like elimination of intragroup transaction balances to report accuracy, educate related party disclosures. Okay, lovely. So you are talking about the intragroup balances, that procedure is on them. Then what happens is that the related party disclosures, okay, related party disclosures. So you need to have procedures on them, plus the substantive procedures. Substantive procedures on the property, plant equipment. Furthermore, communication with the component auditors at Geranium, performing procedures for the acquisition, accounting, including the goodwill and the fair value, performing tests for the acceptability of the communication from the component auditor, planning for procedures on the foreign currency transactions of the Daisy company, impairment testing of goodwill and other assets. So these are the things that you would actually have to do. I repeat, these are the things that you would actually have to do with respect to all this. So if there is anyone who could add up anything more, just let me know. Otherwise, this is substantial enough, this is sufficient enough that we have actually listed down. Yeah, basically what happens is that, see, as an auditor, you would have to perform the procedures for the impairment of the goodwill and for the impairment of the non-current asset. Yes, we would obviously be requesting them that you should perform. So basically, this is how you are going to answer this question. Now, this question gave you marks for the analysis, judgment, etc. Multiple type of things were there on the basis of which you were getting marks. So what actually happens is that you need to make sure that you demonstrate these things in detail. And basically, the most important aspect of this question was that we should identify the issues, the problems that are actually being faced with respect to this audit. And we have actually identified, and I hope that people would have benefited from this. Now, let's move on. Let's try to discuss the last question of this mock examination so that we are able to finish the mock. Now, it says, you are a manager in the forensic department of your firm. Oh, you are a manager in the forensic department of your firm, Cafe and Co. You have received a request from Beer Company about an inventory fraud which brought to the attention of the company's audit committee by a whistleblower. Beer is not currently a client of your firm. So basically you are going to be, you are performing the forensic inquiry. There has been a fraud. There has been a fraud which has been highlighted by somebody who has acted as a whistleblower. By somebody who has been identified as a whistleblower, and that fraud has actually has suggested that there is actually a problem. Now, the following exhibits available on the left-hand side of the screen provide information relevant to the question. The background information about potential new client, an investigation requested by audit committee, allegations, a summary of allegations of the whistleblower. Now, what are the requirements of the question? It says evaluate the matters which should be considered before your firm accepts the invitation to perform a forensic investigation for Beer Company. Having accepted the procedures, having accepted the engagement, recommend procedure which should be performed. Evaluate the deficiencies in system of internal control and explain how they contributed to the fraud together with the recommendation to prevent such fraud from recurring. So basically, if I'm going to write down the answer to the question, I'm going to write down the answer to the question like this. One of them is evaluate the matters which should be considered before your firm accepts the invitation to perform a forensic investigations. So this is something of a bookish, which you would have to actually answer. So one of the part is purely a bookish part. Then the second thing is that having accepted the engagement, recommend the audit procedures that should be performed to quantify the inventory loss. And then the third thing that you actually have to do is to evaluate. What do you need to do? You need to evaluate the deficiencies in the internal control system and explain how they contributed to the fraud and how would you prevent them from reoccurring. So if I could just say that what could possibly happen is that he's asking you to identify the deficiencies, explain how they contributed together with the recommendations for the fraud to be reoccurring. So you would say that deficiencies, the explanation, recommendation. I would rather go for this tabular approach for this question. Rather than going for the long thing, I would rather go for the tabular approach for this specific question. Now, when it comes to evaluating the matters which need to be considered before accepting the forensic investigation, so there are a few things that I would actually identify. Um, that is basically the skills available, the experience to handle such cases, training received to handle inquiry/investigation, the ethical issues/matters that would arise in relation to this inquiry. So the ethical issues or the ethical matters that are actually going to arise in relation to this inquiry. So basically what happens is that the ethical issues or the matters that would arise in relation to the inquiry. Furthermore, what happens is that the firm should not accept audit engagement of the client. The commercial considerations need to be considered, like fee, etc., to ensure that quality is not compromised. To ensure that quality is not compromised. The involvement of senior level personnel should be planned. The involvement of senior level personnel should be planned. Furthermore, there is one more important thing, and that is basically if the evidence or slash report would be used slash presented in any court of law, etc. So there are things that you would actually have to consider. Okay, is there anything else that you would like to add up? Yes, you can use the tabular approach because what happens is, see, the table is given over here. Okay, yes, the deadline, the timeline. The timeline to cover the engagement. Now, we did not read through it, but we just did it because it was a bookish type of a thing, right? Bayer manufactures and sells parts used in automotive industry to both car manufacturers and to garages, specializing in the repair and servicing of cars. The audit committee would like CAF company to perform a forensic investigation to quantify the loss suffered as a result of inventory fraud and to recommend improvements in the company's controls to avoid similar issues in the future. In addition, audit committee has mentioned that although quantification is to form the basis of an insurance claim, matter has been reported to the police who will be investigating the matter further. Now, clearly identify that involvement with the police is required or not, or you would actually say clearly identify if representation to the police authorities by the auditor would be needed or not, which is simply defining the scope. Thank you. So now what actually happens is that what are the allegations? Now it says, having accepted engagement, operation directors provides you with the following summary of the allegations of the whistleblower. So whistleblower has given these allegations. The warehouse manager has been working with one of the sales representative to dispatch goods to a fictitious customer. Warehouse manager has been working with one of the sales representative to dispatch goods to a fictitious customer, which the warehouse manager has created on the dispatch system. So one thing is that one deficiency is that warehouse manager should not be able to create the customer on the system. You see, this is actually the problem. The sales orders are input by sales representative into the dispatch system, which is not directly linked to the invoicing and accounting system. The accounting and invoicing system is not integrated with the sales order system. Then what else is there? It says after the goods dispatch note is issued by the warehouse manager and the goods leave the warehouse for delivery to the fictitious customer, the sales representative cancels the original order. The authority to cancel the order and to create order is with the sales representative, which is actually a problem. He can create, he can cancel. So he can actually misuse the system. The warehouse manager reverses the dispatch immediately so that daily report and inventory movement used to generate invoices in the sales does not reflect the movement of the goods. The system does not maintain logs as the cancellation of the orders on the continuous basis should have been highlighted while reviewing the system. The sales representative takes delivery of the goods at the address of the fictitious customer and then sells the parts on the internet, splitting the proceeds with the warehouse manager. The warehouse manager supervises, participates in all inventory counts, and this way ensures he's able to adjust the records of the inventory to disguise the missing items. Lack of segregation of the duty with respect to the warehouse manager's responsibilities and the authority. Then it says the operation director has informed you that no authorization is required for the either cancellation or orders of dispatch. Authorization is not needed for either of the cancellation of the order slash dispatch. You see, what has actually happened is that the system is flawed. The system is actually flawed. I repeat, the system is flawed. If the system would not have been flawed, this is not how things have happened. Now he says recommend the procedure which should be performed in order to quantify the inventory loss. So simply what happens is that inspect the system log, obtain the dispatch which have been cancelled, extract list of all the extracts of all the dispatches cancelled by the warehouse manager, perform inventory count and match the quantity at the warehouse with the quantity recorded in the system. Sales order cancellation report should also be generated. All the orders cancelled / processed by the sales manager should be considered in detail. If I could just give this recommendation, customer creation should be segregated and the finance department should handle it. Integrated system should be introduced so that all aspects of the accounting cycle are updated on a real-time basis. Appropriate level of management should have the authority to authorize any cancellations posted in the system. Logs should be reviewed on a periodic basis. There should be segregation of duty within both the warehouse and the sales department. Furthermore, there should be rotation of the staff within the departments so that risk of collusion is avoided. Do you get my point? Yeah, do you people get this? Okay, so we are done with this, and I have not extended the explanation, but you people do have an idea that how to actually go about it, right? So basically, I have actually gone through the entire mock examination that was available on the ACCA website. Obviously, I have not drafted the answers in the way it is needed for the examination, but I have made it available to you people that how exactly would you be listing down things, how exactly would you be identifying the issues. So these are the things that I've actually identified for you people. And I hope that this is going to be valuable and this is going to be helpful for all of you. I'll just make sure that I make all of these available to you people. I'll just ask our team to make sure that it is made available to you, all of you people. So in case if any one of you have got any questions, any issues, anything that you would like to ask, you're most welcome to ask. Thank you, Teopista Zen Senzi. Thank you very much for your feedback. So thank you very much, guys, for attending the session. I hope that you people would have enjoyed the session, and I hope that it would have been valuable for you people. Also, if there is any other thing that you people would like to ask, you may actually ask in the WhatsApp groups also. I would try to be more responsive because I've just gotten over with a lot of things. So I've been able to probably reply during the daytime also, but ideally try to respond, ask in the group so that that becomes easier for me to respond. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Srileen. Thank you, Imran. Thank you, Maila. Everyone, thank you. Thank you very much for attending the session. Thank you for the feedbacks. You want to share the word? You want to share a written answer? Jean, what do you want to do? Okay, do that. We'll try to, inshallah, respond back and review that also. But when you do that, do share the question also, so that I don't end up wasting my time searching for the question actually. Yes, inshallah. Thank you. We'll share that. Thank you very much, all of you.